A seeker once came to Gorakhnath, not a casual questioner, not a curious tourist of philosophy, but a soul already cracked open by doubt, silence, and longing. His eyes carried sleepless nights, his breath carried prayer without words. He bowed and asked, "Is this universe created by God?" Gorakhnath did not answer immediately, because truths of fire cannot be handed to dry grass without burning it. He looked at the seeker for a long time, long enough for the seeker to begin hearing his own thoughts echo back at him, long enough for the question to lose its borrowed shape and reveal its hunger. Then Gorakhnath spoke. "Before asking who created the universe, tell me, who is asking?" The seeker was startled. He had expected thunder, not a mirror, scriptures, not silence, a declaration, not a return. He said, "I am asking." Gorakhnath smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but clearly. "Then we must begin much earlier than God." The question behind the question. "Listen," Gorakhnath said, "your question is not about the universe. It is about security. You are asking, is there a creator watching over me? Is there meaning behind suffering? Is chaos secretly order? Am I abandoned or held?" The mind disguises fear as philosophy. The seeker felt exposed, because it was true. Gorakhnath continued, "When the child is afraid in the dark, he asks if his father is awake. When the soul is afraid in existence, it asks if God created the world." "You ask if God created the universe," Gorakhnath said, "because the mind cannot tolerate groundlessness. The mind needs a beginning, a cause, a doer, a controller. So it invents one if it cannot find one."
The seeker protested softly. "Invents?" Gorakhnath nodded. "Not falsely, in desperation." "Tell me," Gorakhnath asked, "have you ever experienced creation?" The seeker hesitated. "You have experienced birth," Gorakhnath said, "but not creation. Birth happens within the universe. Creation would have to happen outside it. And where will you stand to witness that?" The seeker was silent. "All creation stories," Gorakhnath continued, "are stories of the mind trying to imagine a place it cannot stand in." "If God created the universe," Gorakhnath said slowly, "then tell me, who created God?" The seeker replied quickly, "God is uncreated." Gorakhnath smiled again. "Then why not grant the same dignity to existence itself?" Silence deepened. "You stop inquiry at God," Gorakhnath said, "not because it is true, but because the mind is tired." "God," Gorakhnath said, "is not the answer. God is where questioning stops. And wherever questioning stops, truth also stops." The seeker felt both shaken and relieved, like someone who had been carrying a heavy idol and was suddenly allowed to set it down. "Listen carefully now," Gorakhnath said, his voice lower, deeper. "The universe was not created. It is appearing." The seeker frowned. "What is the difference?" Gorakhnath picked up a clay pot nearby. "When a potter makes a pot, something new comes into existence. But when you see a snake in a rope, was the snake created?" "No," the seeker said. "It was an illusion." "Good," Gorakhnath replied. "Now understand, the universe is not an illusion like a dream, but it is also not a manufactured object. It is a manifestation, not a production." "That which begins must end," Gorakhnath said. "That which is created must decay. But existence itself has no opposite. Where would it come from? Where would it go?" The seeker felt something loosen inside his chest. You ask if God created the universe, Gorakhnath continued, but this question assumes time existed before the universe. Time is inside existence.
So how can there be a before? In the North Path, Gorakhnath said, God is not a maker sitting outside the world. God is a name given to totality when the mind becomes silent. The seeker whispered, Then God is not real. Gorakhnath's eyes sharpened. Do not insult God by making him an object. God is not unreal, but God is not other. God appears, Gorakhnath said, the moment you feel separate from existence. When you say, I am here, world is there, God becomes the bridge. He paused. When separation dissolves, God dissolves too, not as loss, but as fulfillment. Gorakhnath leaned closer.
You are asking the wrong direction. Instead of asking who created the universe, ask, why do I feel separate from it? The seeker's breath slowed. When the wave asks who created the ocean, Gorakhnath said, it has forgotten it is water. The sun does not create reflections, Gorakhnath said. The lake does. Similarly, consciousness does not create the universe. The mind does. The seeker felt a chill. Then what is the universe? Gorakhnath answered, a reflection of consciousness filtered through desire, memory, fear, and identity. For beginners, Gorakhnath said gently, God is useful, like a thorn to remove a thorn. But once silence arrives, even God must be dropped. The seeker trembled, not from fear, but from recognition.
You want an author for the universe, Gorakhnath said, because you think truth needs ownership. But truth is authorless, like the sky, like space, like awareness. The question, who created, Gorakhnath said, belongs to grammar, not to reality. Language demands subjects and objects. Existence does not. The seeker asked softly, then how should I live without believing God created the universe? Gorakhnath replied, live with awe instead of answers. Live with responsibility instead of obedience. Live with awareness instead of belief. Gorakhnath stood up. Do not ask whether God created the universe. Sit. Watch your breath. Watch your thoughts. When the mind becomes still, you will not ask this question, because you will be the answer. The seeker bowed, not to Gorakhnath, not to God, but to the silence that remained after the question died. And in that silence, the universe was no longer created. It was present.